Have no fear, Hippie here is here, and today we will see what appears on YouTube. Um, I was watching a video by Kaiser, excellent content creator. Give him a like and follow. And I just came across to me one of his more controversial videos I take kind of issues with. Um, so let's hop into it.
Creators like to kick the hornet's nest once in a while. I, on the other hand, play hacky sack with the fucking thing. So, recently, probably about 2 to 3 days ago, as of recording this video, the DBD Comp Alliance, which is the combination of 4 different competitive leagues, the Champions of the Fog, DBD leagues, Hens and his stuff, and Outrun the Fog. They came together and they pretty much made like this whole big thing where it was like, hey, guess what? This is how we're going to keep competitive integrity throughout all tournaments and things like that, which is kind of cool. You know, I'm down for the competitive nerds and their thing. But they released a tweet that said DBDCA suspends the player Momoseventh, which, if you're not aware, was the 2,000 win streak blight main or something like that, 1,000, something like that.
Yeah,
The reason
I've
was
seen some of his
excessive and
videos.
intentional
He's good.
bad manners. Then they said the explanation was the player in question humped their opponent during a tournament match. And then a whole bunch of people are like all pissy and all this other stuff, but there is a rule within the DBD Comp League. You can see down here it says in-game related behavior, and I'm just going to read it to you real fast, okay? Disclaimer: the DBD Comp Alliance acknowledges that in-game behavior, notably bad manners, commonly referred to as BM, is a complex issue requiring thorough investigation and judgment. Despite these complexities, it is essential to establish clear regulations on what behavior is tolerated to achieve the aforementioned goals. Players are prohibited from exhibiting intentional and excessive bad manners toward opponents through their behavior during games. The enforcement is a warning or suspension. For the purpose of clarification, the following examples provide additional guidance and understanding. Intentional. Bad manners towards an opponent can be considered intentional when the individual players take specific actions to exhibit such behavior. For example, survivors remain in the trial after the exit gates have been opened and they have the opportunity to leave together. Instead, they choose to wait at the exit gate to teabag the killer, intentionally showing disrespect. Excessive actions go beyond occasional or minor displays of disrespect. They are repeatedly deliberate or significantly disrupt the game's integrity and the enjoyment for other players. Example: a player constantly and repetitively hits a survivor on hook. The so-called humping is an egregious example of bad manners characterized by explicit disrespect towards the opponents and disruptive behavior. Enforcement is suspension. So they ended up doing this entire thing, and it ended up pissing off a lot of, well, I'll be honest with you, cringe-ass weirdos.
Yeah.
Now, I've spoken briefly on humping in the past, and I am going to talk about it now. And I am going to tell you right now that once I talk about this, you're going to go down to the comment section, and you are going to, without a doubt, see multiple people take my words and twist them. And I know you're going to, because every time this discussion comes up, this is what happens. Okay? So I'm going to make this clear. First off, I'm going to give you a little bit of my background related to SA. All right, so a big trigger warning, skip to the time code on your screen if you don't want to hear, but I'm going to give you my background.
I have no idea what time code that is for me, but feel free to skip ahead.
I'm a victim of SA. I was sexually assaulted when I was a child at the age of 6, at the age of 9, and at the age of 16. And when I was 15, I was almost the victim of child grooming. Thankfully, my mother recognized the signs and she stepped in and got this man that was trying to groom me out of my life. But when I talk on sexual assault and rape in specific, I am talking from a place of experience. So do not go down into my comment section or into my replies or whatever and start telling me, a sexual assault victim, how I should be looking at this, or how I, a sexual assault victim, are disrespecting other sexual assault victims. Okay? Okay. With that being said, with my victimization in mind and with my experience, I don't like humping. I find humping incredibly cringe because it simulates SA. Simulates. No one is saying.
Okay, that's the first point I disagree with. I feel like what the community calls humping does not look like humping at all. unless you're using Chucky, of course, because he's much lower to the ground. But it looks to me more like the killer is walking back and forth on the survivor constantly. Um, I feel like it would be more comparable to stomping. But to me, it doesn't look similar. I know some other like uh, killer mains may say that they are trying to replicate, but it doesn't really look similar unless like the survivor's up on like an elevator surface or whatnot. Um, and to me, it's like basically a form of teabags, since like the killers do not have the ability to crouch. And survivors do. Survivors can do it anytime they want, and it doesn't matter. The only killers who can teabag is Pig and Ghostface. So I would just say like it just doesn't look the same, and it's really just a killer's equivalent to teabagging.
The same as, no one is saying raped in a video game, we are saying simulates. You are simulating fucking someone against their will while they are
Nah,
in a
nah.
position of
You
vulnerability.
can say it
Do not
is,
sit
but
here
it
and
doesn't look
pretend that's
like
not what
it.
it is. You know exactly for a fact, because it's called fucking humping, that you are simulating
Should be
fucking
called
someone
stomping.
against their will. Again, this is not the same thing as the real thing, and it's not as traumatic as the real thing. Shut the fuck up, because I
Absolutely
know
not.
that's what y'all are going to try to come at me with. It is
The
simulating
same
it,
thing.
and that can be seen as a problem to some people. Now, me personally, I just find the behavior cringe, because we have far funnier ways to BM survivors as a killer, including smacking the shit out of them on hook over and over again. Like
Yeah,
the nodders and the
that
nopers
is
are
fun.
the
He,
funnier fucking things. Even things like slow turns are absolutely hilarious forms of BM that you can use on a regular fucking basis
they're
and
fairly
not be
funny.
a cringe lord. Now, in particular, Momo has already been explained this kind of thing on several occasions and has vehemently ignored everybody who has brought this up. One of the big things that I want you to recognize is that some victims of sexual assault do react to this kind of thing in a way that makes them feel incredibly uncomfortable. Yes, no one is having anxiety attacks or mental breakdowns because
This
they're
may
getting
make you
humped,
feel
but it
uncomfortable.
does make several people incredibly uncomfortable, especially people who have gone
It's a
through this
taunt.
before. So I don't want to hear your bullshit about how people are disrespecting sexual assault victims because they're pointing out that this is actually simulating that, because we are speaking for sexual assault victims who feel uncomfortable. And while I'm not one of them, I'm also not going to tell somebody else how they are allowed to respond to their trauma. There are so
I would say I agree with him. Like, you're not really allowed to tell people how they deal with their trauma too much. But there also is like a boundary too. One thing that I was always told growing up is your problems are not the world's problems. So, like, I believe in like accessibility for different things, for like hearing aids, for adaptive equipment. If you need like a ramp or to help you out with your wheelchair, disability parking, stuff like that. Options in video games for colorblind people, options in video games for the deaf. I really, really enjoy all that stuff. Um, but I don't feel like it's reasonable accommodation to try to. I'm honestly, I kind of want to know what his solution for it would be. Just ban everybody who does it? I mean, that would basically be just about everybody in the game, I feel like. Because it's pretty prevalent right now, especially after the release of Chucky. Chucky is a special scenario where it actually kind of does look like it, and I I don't know what you could really do to resolve it, honestly. Only thing I could think of would maybe like a bleed out meter and make it so you could pass away quicker, which I see that problematic because that leaves a potential for uh, other survivors to escape through hatch much easier. But then again, I'm also kind of for getting rid of hatch because it's very RNG based. Um, so yeah, let's continue.
so many other alternatives to BM that you can do that this humping thing is just absolutely fucking ridiculous, and I'm so sick of seeing it. Now, if it's between you and somebody you know in a random public match, it is what the fuck ever, right? I think if it's between
Yeah,
you and
yeah,
your homie in a random public match or in a 1v1, that is between you and your buddy, right? It's kind of like you wouldn't walk up and backslap a stranger, but your buddy says a stupid joke and you're like, dude, shut up, right? It's a kind of thing that if it's something that is agreed upon between friends, then it should be fine. Now, most people who have already looked into the situation are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to be like, well, actually, it was a friend of Momo's. He said it was his friend, and you know what? It probably was. I didn't look into it, but here is the thing. In regards to this Momo situation, this suspension, regardless of how you feel about it, should be looked at as valid because it
yeah.
broke the goddamn rules. No.
And I am absolutely fine with suspension of bad manners while competing in like a tournament and stuff like that. Not in, I wouldn't want to ban somebody or for like bad manners during an actual public trial, um, unless you are really like holding the game hostage or just doing something like just an exploit, something like that. But yeah, if you are a part of the DBD league, you should be have the utmost sportsmanship, and you should be the prime role model for other competitive DBD players. And watch your mouth and watch what you do in your trials.
No matter whether or not you like the rules, if you decide to participate in competitive Dead by Daylight and they have rules in place and you break those rules, you are going to get that suspension enforced. Now, if you want
Agreed.
this to change, that's up to you. You can go out and talk about it and be like, "Hey, I think this is kind of stupid. I think that this should change. I think this is one of those things that definitely needs to change." And, fucking go for it. Go campaign for it to change. But do not pretend that somebody actively breaking the rules is supposed to be exempt just because you happen to like them. Now, I don't personally know Momo as a person. I have only seen some of the ways that they have reacted to certain things,
I've seen
and
his
them personally,
clips.
if I remember correctly, I'm gonna double check right here. They say not going to disagree with the suspension, and I apologize for forgetting the ruling on humping, but would just like to clarify that the BM went both ways and was just friendly banter. Won't be repeating the same mistake. And the thing is, so yeah, here's where they said Zeno is a
A little
good
too
friend of
late.
mine, and it was completely friendly. If you have a problem with it, I don't know what to tell you. LOL. So yeah, so even Momo is like, yeah, it looks like I did break the rules. Then he like deflects and he's like, well, it went both ways and it was just friendly banter. But the point is that regardless, it was the rules. You broke the rules, and that's definitely something you should be looking out for. But that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you think down below. I'm sure the comment section is going to be an absolute treat to go through. Just try to keep everything as like tight to the vest as you can. Like I said, guys.
Yeah. And I looked for his comment section, and there was like a really good comment in here I agree with. And it was, yeah, that's a matter of perspective. The origin of teabag and teabag is based upon sexual output and genitalia in the mouth of a person. But the act in game is far, far removed from the real world version. It has never been treated as a genuine form of comical rape in any trend since its conception in popular media, like Halo. It is simply a form of mockery that occupied the space emotes taking current day games. The teabagging is considered similar enough to compare it to sexual assault. What what do you call it when you eliminate a player of a team? Murder, genocide? Your average player is not thinking to such extremes when they do such harmless acts. Their only intention is triggering the person that they play against. If you think it's cringe, that is fair. But know that in the end of the day, players are genuinely trying to elicit an enraged reaction. They do not care if it makes someone uncomfortable. That's sort of the point of the action, to make you uncomfortable, bothered, and irritated. I agree that is what the rules and yeah, words are hard. I agree that as it was the rules and he was ran through the rules, the punishment is justified regardless on anyone's personal feelings on this. The rules agreed upon were laid out before anything started, ignoring personal opinions on virtual teabagging and humping. It just makes sense to keep things professional in any competitive space. Yeah, so I really agree with that comment. I feel like it made a great comparison in that um if you could consider humping a form of like sexual assault, why wouldn't you consider like actually hitting somebody with a machete in the game as just normal assault? Like I don't see where the disconnect is there. I feel like, and for people who actually have like experience with abuse and just horrible, horrible life situations along with phobias, I feel like DVD is a game I would like to be accessible to more and more people. However, like there's only so much you can do for accessibility um for the game when the game is based off of terrible, terrible things happening. Um and it takes it and it's very inspired by dark lore. So yeah, I really feel like if you were to try to get rid of it, or try to ban people who do stuff like that, you might as well just ban people who have fear of death, thanatophobia, fear of clowns, chlorophobia, fear of sickness with plague. You might as well try to get rid of all that stuff, and at that point, you're just losing the core spirit of DBD and what it's all about. It's a great series. I love it. And yep, I hope everybody has a great, wonderful day. I'll see you around. Bye bye.